All right, guys. So today is a conversation that I got to have with my good friend, Ed Milet. Again, he doesn't know he's my friend. However, I'm his best friend. I follow him every day, and we talk all the time. He talks to me. I listen. I'm a really good listener of his. One of these days, he'll find out that he is my best friend, and he'll be like, "You too, bro. You too." And the conversation today stemmed around one particular topic. And I think I spoke to this quote. I remember hearing it for the first time on Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu, and he was interviewing Lewis House. And one of the quotes that came through that just always stay to the surface in the top of mind is, you can't change the people around you, and yet you can change the people around you. And that quote stuck with me. And you may need to take a second, write that down, and think about it. If it's the first time you ever heard it, I want you to think about it. We can't always change the people around us, and yet you can change the people around you. As in, some people are on a journey to become their best versions of themselves, and some people are just locked in who they are, and it's a choice that they're making, right? I did a post a while back asking if people really believe that at some point in life they're incapable of change, or they just choose to not do the work required to change. And it was some interesting responses to that. So you could spend all of your energy attempting to change others, or you could be focusing on making sure that your circle is one of power. And so there are three ways that Ed was talking about how he audits or keeps track of or thinks about in order to make sure that he's surrounding himself and allowing himself to be around the best people. The first one is standards, temperatures, and speeds, right? And the quote that I love to ponder is, you don't become the average of the five people around you. You become the average of the standards of the five people around you. Just being in proximity to people that are abundantly wealthy or healthy or spiritual or highly relational, that's one thing, right? Because you get to observe through proximity. However, if you allow them to hold you to their standards, then it's different. So he was talking about, there was a dinner that he was at, and he was celebrating with some people around him that he really admired. And when it was a birthday dinner, and when the dessert came around, he said, "This is normally." He's like, "Normally I would have had the cake." He said, "But the first three people passed." And just that example for him, go, because they had a very specific standard on what days and how they choose to have their cheat meals or whatever it is. And at that dinner, it just didn't fit. And so they just said, "No, thank you." And it actually, he says, what's interesting is that it actually kind of reverberated and permeated around the table. And that was one example of the standards. The other metric that he looks at is the temperature, right? Are you around people that are hot for that area of life, that are running at 140 degrees financially versus your 70 degrees? Are you around people that are running around at 150 degrees in their health and wellness, and you're at 50 degrees? Like there's a different speed, he would call it. He says it's really apparent when you're around performers. They operate at a different speed, they have a different cadence, they just move differently. And if you were ever in science, when something gets heated up, what happens to the molecules when you heat something up? They move faster, right? Speed creates heat, right? And when you heat something up, or when you're around something that's hot, it will warm you up as well. However, you will also possibly bring that down. So surround yourself with people that are operating higher and hotter than you, and it could help raise your temperature at least closer to theirs. The other side of that is, though, be cognizant of how many people below you allow around you, because it can also cool you off. So he said, are you around people that have the standards that you're looking for, are operating at the temperature you're looking for, and the speed that you're looking for? So that's the first category that he takes a look at. The second is, what do the people in your circle talk about? And we had a conversation last week around this, where, are they historians or are they visionaries? Are they talking about the past and the things that they did and the successes that they had? Or Are they talking about the present? And more importantly, are they talking about a future? And are they talking about a positive future and not, oh,
Yeah.
countries going to hell and oh, we're letting in and then like, are they talking about a better future or right? Like, who are you surrounding yourself with? Are they historians? Are they visionaries? Are they talking about the present and the future? Are they talking about ideas? Are they talking about building things? Are they excited about certain things? And then third, he talks about energy. Are you surrounding yourself with people with a positive net energy? Do they pour into you? Do they believe in you? Do they encourage you? Do they pull you up? Or are they criticizing you? Are they judging you? Are they making little offhanded comments that are just kind of cuts, right? Uh are they just uh um you know you've got some of those friends, you know what they're like. I know. I remember. I can't think of any kind of specific examples, and yet my daughter has a friend that's like this. That, and I don't know if she knows that she's doing it because they're young. I mean, they're like 11. So, and she just, and I know what it, and I can see what it is just from the kind of comments, and it's just it's a self confidence issue. It's a believing in yourself issue, and so the comments that are made are really kind of difficult. Like you and I both know that I'm the one with style. Like, that's what she'll say. Like, so you have friends like that to say certain things like that, right? Um, so are they an energy giver or are they drainer? Do they believe? Do they challenge? Do they uphold? Do they push you? Do they speak life into you, into the relationships, right? And so the question is this: how do you choose to upgrade your circle? And on the opposite side of this is if you've got a circle that needs upgrading, how do you do so without having to cut people out of your life as opposed to otherwise, right? I remember posting something like this. It said making I put a post once that said um your circle should reflect your future, not your past. And then somebody made a quote that says, "Well, don't forget the people in your past that got you here." And I was like, "Oh, awesome." And that's the thing, is that there are some people that helped get you here, and there's some people that caused you to be here as an example of what not to be. And so how do you choose to create energy around your circle? So he says look for the environments, the communities, and the places where the people that you desire to grow into and be like or be a part of are, whether that's churches or business groups or coffee shops or networking meetings or conferences, etc., and connect with them. But don't just, he says, when you're connecting with somebody, don't just ask, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I just be around you? He says, come from contribution. And he says, but here's the thing. He says, I don't need anything from anybody right now. He's like, I have all the money in the world. I have all the businesses I want. I have all the success and the relationships that I desire. So how does someone attempt to come and come around me? And he says, there's so many different ways that you can give to someone, even like himself. He says, you can give your prayers, you can give your support, you can give your belief, you can share the content, you can leave reviews. Like he says, you have no idea, even from someone in my position, that when somebody comes up and says, hey, I wanted to thank you, I'm so grateful for everything you do, I'm a huge supporter, I share your content all the time, and I talk about your content every day, in our groups, etc., thank you so much. And then if you like lean in and say, is there anything I could do to help continue to spread your word, and anything I can do to help support your mission, anything like, and then that creates a different conversation. So he said, there's one other thing that determines or is a clear indicator of what type of circle you're in. And he says, you got to ask yourself, how do you show up in these three areas for your people? And if you want to upgrade your circle, do you need to upgrade how you participate? Are you attracting the type of people that you want in your circle by the way that you behave and the way that you show up? So, for instance, Are you upgrading your standards? Are you pushing up your temperature? Are you working on your speed and your commitment and you're getting things doneness, if you will, right? What kind of conversations are you participating in? What kind of conversations are you perpetuating? What kind of conversations are you initiating? When you enter a room, do people light up or do they realize, oh shit, this is going to be an energy drain? Do you change the temperature of the room up or do you bring it down? Right. So if you're not satisfied with your circle, you may need to upgrade how you show up in order to attract and then keep the people in your circle that you desire. And so what did he say? He said it requires a level of belief and acting as if. See, people don't quit smoking. I can speak to this. I smoked for 14 years before I quit. And when I decided to quit, number one, I had a really big motivator. Uh, my girlfriend at the time,
Nice.
my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, said, "Hey, I really like you, but I don't date someone who smokes. And if you want to spend more time with me," she's like, "you really should consider not smoking because I can't kiss you. I don't want to kiss you." And I'm like, well, and here's the difference I want you guys to hear. I didn't say I'm going to quit smoking. What I said is, okay, today I'm a non-smoker. I had to shift my identity, not my activity. I didn't quit smoking. I became a non-smoker. A non-smoker doesn't worry about the next cigarette. A smoker who quit thinks about him every day. I had to become a non-smoker because I wanted to become closer in that relationship. So that person helped elevate my standards and invited me through a challenging conversation into a bigger and better life. So, in what areas do you need to shift your identity and not your activity because of the people in your circle? I'd like to open the conversation for you all to participate. As I share these things and you think about your own circle, you know, where and what part of your circle do you feel like you deserve and desire an upgrade? Obviously, this is a really compelling conversation.
Um, I would say for me, and I think as kind of, like during coach, we've talked about it a lot. When I get something in my head, no matter, if it's something I, know will help me or something that I'm looking forward to, whatever the case may be, it's something that, I want to get done, right? So it's just something that I want to almost constantly be like moving towards, right? Doesn't have to be huge leaps, but it has to be like, no, I'm moving in that direction.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, I think it's hard to find people that have, that same, I don't remember, like sense of urgency, right? And so I compare it a lot to like, you're back in school and you get assigned like a group project. And like there's always, the one person that's doing the work behind it. There's always the one person that is just literally just there for the ride, and then there's other people that are like can
They're like,
be
yes, I got the right group. I don't have to do a lot.
yeah. And then there's people that can be like, they have to be told what to do, but like they'll do the work, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, and I think like I find myself a lot like just in like a situation like that where it's like, and I don't know if that's like everywhere in life or it's just like you're just always gonna be like in that group where there's like just that dynamic. But it'd be nice to have people, that are either, you know, trying to go the same speed I am, or,
Mhm.
kind of like I said, taking that leader role and, telling me what to do so I can get there. Um, and so yeah, that's something I know that I need to evaluate more for sure.
Ramil, I love this, right? So I often talk about it and I say, it's fun running with runners, right? Like finding people that you can run with. Because there's
Yeah.
people that you feel like there's people that you're like always kind of pulling along,
Hmm.
right? And it's fun to run with runners. So where do you find runners? Well, you got to go to running clubs. You know, there are places where runners congregate with each other, right? Little did I know when I started this journey that there are people that will just get together on a weekend and they'll have a predetermined course. And like whether you're doing 5 miles, 6 miles, or 20 miles, they have it all laid out and they have group of people that are going to come together. And you can even
Hmm.
find people in your pace. They'll be like, hey, let's go. And you help, and everyone's pulling each other, right? There are places like that in our businesses. There are organizations that we get to become members of and belong to where runners congregate, where people that are looking to do these things congregate. Like we're really fortunate in our organization to be part of one of the most productive groups on the planet. And so the calls that we get to have, like not these calls, so the calls that we have throughout the week
Hmm.
are really uncomfortable and kind of hard and awesome. And I shared a conversation with my wife about a call that I had a week and a half ago where I got called out publicly in front of like 30 people. In a positive way though, saying, "Hey, that's really great. Your results up to this point are fantastic, but based on who you are and what you've done, you're like 80% behind." And I was like, "Ooh." And so the thing is like how do you receive that? When I shared that with my wife, she goes, "Are you kidding me? How what?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I said it in the same time she said it. She was saying, "How could he?" And I was like, "Isn't that awesome?"
Yeah.
Right? And like it's like how do you receive it? Cuz I'm looking for challenge.
Right.
Like I'm constantly looking for somebody to push me. So what's cool is, all right, there's another room that we get to be a part of. That guess what? You don't get to hide because it's all runners. And the people that are doing it and that actually do it aren't going to let you hide. The challenge is sometimes we get into these environments or these circles where everyone's patting you on the butt because your 60% is more than they could ever do. And
Hmm.
so they're clapping for you. And then sometimes we can fall in love with the applause and it holds us down in mediocrity because our just enough is more than they could ever think about. And that's
Yeah.
dangerous. And that's really dangerous, right?
Yep. Another question I had quick would
Yeah.
be, so at what point, I know we talked about like changing, like people in the room, like, are you doing that? So in a situation where maybe you feel like, maybe you have a good close group of friends, right? They're
Mhm.
like, you like the people that they are, but they're not to the level that you want to be. At what point do you, is it, I mean, is it them or is it you, right? Because I mean, if you're that person, because okay, we want to be to a higher group, right? But that allows someone that's higher than us to be like, okay, I know you're not to my level, but come into my space, like learn from me, get better, right? So how long do we stay with people that I guess are at a level below us? You know what I mean?
Mm.
To try to bring them up or change, them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is a really great conversation and a topic around this, right? And I kind of see it in a couple ways, and I'd love other people to chime into this. Number one is I if I have solid relationships in the core areas of my life that I'm constantly looking to level up, and then I have a group of individuals that aren't necessarily like not everything has to be a mastermind. I have a group of guys like I play disc golf. I have a group of guys that we just talk shit.
Yeah.
It's just guys. We're not masterminding. We're not talking about empire building, etc. Right? Like they don't know what I do. Like they have no idea what I do, and I love that. I get to just go and play. I have fun. Now, if the conversation and the energy and whatever in that group goes south and negative, and I'm not having fun because like they're bad sports or what, like whatever. Like I'm gonna
Mhm.
find another one of those groups. Like I have to have fun. It still needs to be a net positive energy, but it doesn't always have to be like an income build. It doesn't like
Gotcha.
I don't want every relationship for me to be transactional. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? Like I'm
Yep.
super relational, but I'm more importantly than that, like I'm highly energetic and I want to be moving forward. So if the conversations are present and future, if people are building each other up and we're cheering for each other and we're challenging each other, well, just because like I may be the highest net worth individual in that circle doesn't mean that I'm going to cut out that circle because I really have fun with those guys in that environment, in that capacity. However, if this is a work conversation or we're in a work or we're in a building environment, then I'm gonna work towards being in a room where I can really learn from somebody and contribute and bring value in some other kind of way. I'd love
Gotcha.
to hear other people's thoughts around that as well, because I think this is a really sensitive conversation that we should all talk about. Because there are family members in my life that I have had to create boundaries around because they don't get, I can't give them more of the energy that I have for them because they're constant energy sucks and it's not fun and they refuse to change. So I've got to make a decision, right? How do you guys navigate that?
I agree there, Matt, that you got to have boundaries because you don't want the energy sucks to take you down so you can't do what you need to do. And I have a hard time doing that sometimes because I'm a giver. Um, and I do let people take me to a point. My husband kind of has to tell me, hey, what you've been doing lately, kind of see you're going down the wrong, path. And sometimes I take it personally, but then if I step back, I think, he knows me best.
Yeah.
So but um you'd have to have boundaries too, to not let those suckers take you down. I don't mean it, you know what I mean by the suckers. I mean the one that
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
take you and take you. But yeah, you do need to kind of know your boundaries too. But you don't want to, there's some that you're going to be on a different level with than when you're working and when you're playing
Mhm.
per se, or when you're
Yep.
just going having a good time with good friends. But I also, I just don't hang around with the ones as much that the I've learned, and it took me a long time. I learned for the
Mhm.
most part, but with family it gets kind of hard sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else?
I think it's whenever we are in one space for a long time, we get really comfortable. We have friends. I'm talking in a workspace.
Mhm.
It's easy to stay there because you're just comfortable and it's what you have done every day. And it's like, oh, this feels good and warm and fuzzy, right? But there's like a subtle shift when it's like, okay, my dreams and things that I want to do are way over here, but I'm not going to be able to do that if I stay in my warm and fuzzies. Like I have to get outside of that. And sometimes that's new people. And the people who are at that higher level of energy, whenever they recognize that in you, they like welcome with open arms. They're like, okay, come on, you want to do this? Let's go. And that's something amazing that I've noticed is it's never like, oh, that person, she's not at our level. She can't be a part of this. It's like, ooh, she wants to do something and maybe I'm not there yet, but they see the potential in me and see that I can get there. And so it's like, all right, this is fun. Let's run. Like you said, run with the runners. But there's definitely, I mean, I can even see in the past year, like a very clear point where I was like, okay, I'm so happy where I am and comfortable and I love it. But there's part of me that's not content because I know that I want something different or I want to go a different direction. And the only way I'm going to get there is if I take a step and make a change. And that's hard and that's scary. And that's it's hard. But gosh, the other side of that step, when you take a step towards the thing that you want to do, and that thing I promise will probably change about 17 times every single day, it's like, oh, this is morphing into something bigger than I even thought. It's so worth that moment of discomfort and walking through that phase to get on the other side of it.
So we're right at time. So what I'd like for you guys to consider is take a look at your life, take a look at your circles. And what are the circles that I like to focus on? So I've got my family. I've got my fellowship or my friendships. I've got my finances. I've got my fitness. I've got my faith. Those are the key areas that I'm looking at in my world. And who do I have in those areas that is inspiring me to level up and raise my temperature and shows up with speed and shows up with high energy and challenge and passion and is setting a new standard for me in those areas, right? And then ask yourself, so rate those areas. See who's like at a scale of 1 to 10, who do you have in there? Who's the number one person in your world around that? And then who's missing that you could somehow get around and connect with or be a part of. And sometimes, for instance, like I alluded to and kind of joked around at the beginning of this call, sometimes the people that you include in that circle are people that you follow that don't necessarily know you. Ed Milet is one of those guys for me. When I talk about my business and my energy and my finances, it's like his mentorship through his content is one that levels me up. The way that he pushes me through the standards that he puts forth in his content. Like he's one of my mentors that doesn't know he is, and yet he is, right? That's someone with impact and influence. So take a look at who's in your world, who are you missing, and then how are you showing up in those circles for the people in your world? And that's our conversation for today. Thanks for stopping by. Tell your friends, bring a guest. We'll see you Wednesday for Workshop Wednesday. Same time, same channel. Deuces.